What's up, guys? It's Oblivious Gamer here. And well, after the announcement of a new Budokai Tenkaichi, there has been a lot of excitement, concern, people talking left and right about what can we expect of a new and modern Budokai Tenkaichi. Because remember, Budokai Tenkaichi 1, 2, 3 were games that came out in the PS2 era. And obviously now we are in a much different place when it comes to gaming. Not just, technology wise and what gaming can be, but also how the industry operates and works. For me, I've just been thinking about two aspects now that I've talked a bit about the game and I've just been looking at people's reactions, comments. And for me, the two things that I'm currently thinking about is the story mode and roster size. Why story mode? Well, if you played a Dragon Ball game, at least in the PS2 era, Budokai and also like Budokai Tenkaichi and then some of the games that came after, I would say the story mode, I wouldn't necessarily say it was like a big thing or a big highlight. Like as a child, yes, I had fun playing it, but most of the time these games had a very common story mode, which is you played everything from the beginning of the Saiyan saga all the way to the Buu saga. So there were just fights after fights and like the story always followed the same thing. Obviously, there were like what if branches in Budokai Tenkaichi. There were also like the movie branches and like some different fights that never happened in the anime or manga, but that was like the way of making it new. And I think that was fine. But nowadays, like, I don't know. And not because arena fighting games or anime fighting games don't do this, because they still do. For me, I would say one of the biggest issues with the story mode, especially if it's just a repeat or a rehash of the anime or the manga, it's the fact that so many characters are tied to the story mode. So in order for you to unlock them, you have to play through the story mode. And if it's not something fun, it becomes an annoyance. And like I said, even modern anime fighting games or anime arena fighting games do this. The Naruto Storm series, Jump Force, the Demon Slayer game that recently came out, all of them were tied to, if you wanted to unlock all of the characters, you had to go through the story mode. And these games' story modes weren't necessarily something grandiose, or they were fairly basic. And for example, for Jump Force, I didn't even bother. I was like, no, I'm not gonna do this. I deleted the game and I was like, I'm not gonna play the story mode to unlock everyone. Demon Slayer, I had to go and unlock everyone because I wanted to play online and I had to go through the story mode. Thankfully it wasn't that long, but it was just really the anime. But it was like, I just recently had watched the anime, so it didn't really make it fun for me. And I'm just wondering, what can Budokai Tenkaichi do at this point? Obviously, I'm not expecting something grandiose, but is it just gonna be the same thing that we come to expect from anime arena fighting games, where it's just a retell of the same story? Plus, nowadays, remember, Dragon Ball was pretty much done story-wise by the 2000s at that point. Dragon Ball Z ended like in 96, 97, and then GT was like up until 98. So by the time Budokai Tenkaichi was coming out, the story was over. Now, remember that we had a decent amount of movies that are canon plus super, so there's a lot more story. A big thing for me is, what will the story mode be? And I'm hoping it's gonna be something a little bit more unique. Obviously, it's not gonna be the end of the world if it's just the same thing. But if it's just the same thing, I'm just hoping that not many characters are tied to the story mode. Like a lot of times with these games, I want to play the game and maybe jump online, but I hate the fact that I have to finish the story mode to unlock all the characters. So I'm just hoping that at least most of the characters are not something that you have to unlock. Obviously, I'm not against having secret characters or unlockable characters and that you have to play like a story mode or like some types of missions to unlock them. But the fact that a lot of the roster is locked behind a okay to mediocre story mode is not a fun thing. So that is my number one biggest concern. What will the story mode be and how will it work? And then of course, as I mentioned, the roster size. And why am I mentioning the roster size? Well, we live in a very different time when it comes to the gaming industry, and that is that back in the PS2 era, the roster size for Budokai Tenkaichi was pretty big, though again, I know some of you guys could argue that, well, you had Goku early, Goku mid, Goku end, Goku Super Saiyan 4, like a lot of different variations of the same character, but you still have like quite a sizable roster. Nowadays, we live in a time where you have DLC, season passes, battle passes. So I don't think the Bandai Namco will hand us off a giant roster size without having, a season pass or some DLC characters. This is one of those perfect games that they can easily do a season pass, and they can do multiple ones with multiple characters. So that is, I think, another concern, the roster size, because if you played Budokai Tenkaichi, you probably remember how decent the roster size was. So that's another concern with this game, and both of these subjects I think will be tied to how the game will be approached. As I mentioned before, is this a game that the developers are making in a sense in their mind where you're just gonna have fun, mash, play, enjoy, that's what we want? Or is this a game that they want to bring in like a little bit of seriousness and make it competitive? Because again, this is also one of those perfect games for them to add in the Dragon Ball Battle Hour thing that they do every year. So I also wouldn't be surprised if the developers are like, we want to have you guys have fun, but also we want to make this game competitive. So there's going to be some balance adjustments towards that. And I think that will also affect, again, unlockables. Because if it's a competitive game, or if it's a game they want us to take competitively seriously, it is a pain in the ass that half of the roster is unlockable by you having to go through a story mode. And also, they would probably want to do season passes to sell DLC, because people will want to have the next big character. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts. Just been thinking about those two aspects about the game and what really can we expect. I know it's very early, the game was just announced. There's still so much we don't know, from who's developing it to is it even gonna come out this year. I think we don't have a release date, nothing. So what are your thoughts, guys? As always, this has been Oblivious Gamer, and I hope you'll have a wonderful day or night wherever you are.